Welcome to my channel of maths videos. My name is Karen Daly and I am a maths lecturer at DKIT, a third level college in Ireland. This video is on understanding fractions, decimal and percentages. Enjoy! Let's look at the concept behind fraction, percentage and decimal. If we have one circle, here's one circle, right, and we divide that circle into two parts. Okay, here you've got one part and there are two equal parts. Okay, two. If I look at this side of the circle here, right, and I want to identify the size of that part, what I write down is that it's 1 out of 2 parts. So 1 over 2, or what we normally call a half. Right? So I've got two halves. Equal size, right? If I brought that a little further and let's say I divided my circle into 4 parts, right? So here's 1, 2, 3, 4 different parts of my circle. Okay, this is 2. Now, if I was to look at if I take one of these, let's say part 1 there, this little shaded area here, there are 4 parts of equal size, and if I was to describe that part there, it would be 1 part out of 4, or what we call a quarter, right? So I've got 4 quarters, and 4 quarters will make up the one circle, 1 over 4. 1 over 2 and 1 over 4 are both called fractions, and they indicate a portion of a whole. If I want to convert my fraction to a decimal, this is what I do. So 1 over 2 is the fraction, and what it represents is 1 divided by 2. And if you divide 2 into 1, the answer you will get is 0.5. Likewise, if you have 1 over 4, that's equal to 1 divided by 4. So if you divide 4 into 1, what you get is 0.25. And these two numbers here, that I've just come up with, these two numbers are called decimals. DEC. So to recap, to convert a fraction to a decimal, all you do is you divide what's on top of the fraction, which in this case here happened to be a 1, by whatever number is on the bottom of the fraction, which in this case happened to be a 2. So 1 divided by 2, and then you get the decimal equivalent. So let me write that in. Just like 1 over 2 was a fractional representation of this area here, we've now found that 0.5 is the decimal representation of this area here. And if we move over here to the other side, here we found that 1 over 4 was the fractional representation of this area here, and in the same way we've just discovered that 0.25 is the decimal representation of this number here. Again, just like before, we have 4 of them areas, so if you add 0.25 to itself 4 times or multiplied by 4, either way, you'll get back to your one circle. Now let's look at going from decimal to percentage. If I go back up here to the top, one circle, one whole circle, represents 100%, right? Here in this first case, I have split my circle into 2 equal parts. One whole is 100%, so how would I get what both of these are? Well, all I do is take 100, divide by 2, and I discovered that it is 50%. Okay, so both of these halves are 50%. Likewise here, each of these parts here is a quarter. If I divide 4 into 100, I'll find that it's 25%. So each of these 4 parts here represents 25%. So I'll just write that down. That's 25%. So if I move down here, let's look at what you do to convert a decimal to a percentage. Okay, so the decimal number, let's say take it as 0.5, and if I want to convert that to a percentage, all I have to do is take the decimal and multiply it by 100. Because remember, one circle represented 100%. So if I do that, I'm going to get that it's 50%. Likewise with 0.25, if I want to take the decimal 0.25 and convert it to a percentage, all I have to do is multiply it by 100. So the answer turns out to be 25%. So let's try this question. It says, express the fraction 3 over 7 as a decimal and a percentage. Right? So if we do that, we'll find that 3 divided by 7, or 3 over 7 as a fraction, is 3 divided by 7. And if you take out your calculator and you work that out on your calculator, you'll discover that the value turns out to be 0.428571428. Now, you may not need all of them positions, all them numbers, but I'm just writing down exactly what my calculator displays. So this is the decimal representation of 3 over 7. That's it in decimal. If I want the percentage representation, all I do is I take 0.428571428, the decimal representation, and I multiply it by 100. Again, you mightn't need all these values, but we're going to just put them in. 42.8571428%. So that there is the percentage form of the fraction 3 over 7. I think it's useful just to visualize what 3 over 7 would look like in relation to my circle that I drew earlier. If I was to divide my circle into 7 equal parts, and I've numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 equal parts, each of them have the same area. Then each of the 1 parts will represent 1 over 7. But I want 3 over 7, so the area that would represent are 3 of the 1 over 7 parts. Right? So that area there in red is the same as the fraction 3 over 7. So let's try this problem here. Express the decimal 0.35 as a percentage and a fraction. Okay, let's have a look at the first one. As a percentage, well, the 0.235 as a decimal, if you want to convert that to a percentage, remember all we had to do was multiply it by 100. So when we multiply it by 100, we get that it's 35%. So that's the answer as a percentage. Now let's convert the decimal 0.35 to a fraction. Okay, what do we do? Now, let's have a look at this number before we start. This is the placeholder for tenths. This here is the placeholder for 100ths. Right? So we've got 5 100ths and 3 tenths. So overall, we have 35 100ths. And if we write that as a fraction, that's 35 divided by 100. We can reduce this fraction further because 5 divides into the top and the bottom of the line. So 5 divides into 35, goes in 7 times. 5 divides into 100, 20 times. So 7 over 20 is the fraction. So just let me write that down. This is the fraction answer, 7 over 20. Let's try one more of these. You're asked to express the decimal. In this case, it's 0.035 as a percentage and as a fraction. So let's try that. So here we've got 0.035. Just as we had before, as a decimal. To convert it to a percentage, what I do is I multiply it by 100. And if I multiply that number by 100, I'll find that it's 3.5%. So that's my percentage answer. Now let's convert the decimal 0.035 to a fraction. Now remember, there are 0 tenths, there are 3 100ths, 100ths, and there are 5 1,000ths in this number. Okay, so overall there's 35 1,000ths, or 35 divided by 1,000. I can reduce this again by dividing by 5 on both on the top and the bottom, and I get that it's 7 over 200. So 7 divided by 200 is the fraction answer to my question. Okay, let's try this example. Express the percentage 43.5% as a decimal and as a fraction. Okay, let's try that. So firstly, 43.5% as a decimal is, remember, 43.5, and all we have to do is divide it by 100. So if you divide it by 100, you're going to get 0.435. So that's the decimal answer. DECIMAL. Now we can get the fraction answer by using the decimal, just as we did before, because 0.435, right? Remember, this is the important one. Here, this is thousandths, right? 1 over 1,000. So this is going to be 435 divided by 1,000. And again, it's not the lowest fraction. If you take 435 and divide it by 5, you'll find that it's 87. And if you take 1,000 divided by 5, it'll reduce to 200, 200. So that's my fraction answer. Fraction answer there. Decimal answer and fraction answer. Let's say I was asked the question, find 3/5 of 300 euro. So firstly, let me write it down. 3/5 is written 3 over 5, 3/5 of 300 euro. Okay, well, if I was to find 1/5 of it, all I would have to do is take 300 and divide by 5. So 1/5, right, of 300 euro would just be equal to 300 divided by 5, right? So if I divide 5 in there, I'll get 60. So 3/5 is 3 times it. So 3/5 of 300 is just 3 times the 1/5. So it's 3 by 60, so it's equal to 180 euro. So that's the answer. You can write down all that calculation together, as I will do up here. 3/5 of 300 then is 300, right, divided by the 5 and multiply it by 3. And what we discovered that is 180 euro. Let's say I was asked to find 34% of 680. Let's do that. Okay, so 34%, right, of 680 is equal to, now just like before, we'll write it as a fraction. 34% is 34 divided by 100, right? That's the fraction. Multiply that by 680. So if I do that, and taking out my calculator, I'll take 34, I'll multiply it by 680, and I'll divide it by 100. So when I do the multiplication, what I'll get is 63120 divided by 100. And if I divide it by 100, I'll find the answer is 231.2. That's the answer.